express a very sui generis situation, Martin. So I think since we need to finish in time, and Lorna, you said you were happy just raising your points in the chat. Shall we try then the next presentation with Catherine is gonna do through the Javiera's phone? This is the joys of the learning technologies. Is that how Javiera is gonna be? Through your phone? Is that correct?
Hello?
Yeah, okay.
Hi there.
Can you hear
Yes.
Catherine?
I think so. Can you hear Catherine okay? I can hear her fine, but...
Catherine, can you hear?
Yes, I can just barely hear.
Okay, off you go. I'll have the phone. I'll hold the phone.
Okay, thank you. If there's anything that has to come back to me, I can hear you just fine, Javiera. Sincere apologies, everyone. I was in so many different sessions today, enjoying them, all kinds of windows open and applications open. Everything was just fine, and then everything just crashed just Leo started speaking. So I have beach balls spinning and all kinds of things. So really apologize for that. The presentation that I've prepared is called New Windows into Open Educational Practices, and the front cover image is an image Lorna and I used for a presentation just a few weeks ago for James Secker. The second slide just shows that the presentation itself is CC licensed. On the next slide, I have an image of a window, and I'm just using the metaphor of a window. Some of you who may have been involved in digital and open education for some time will know that, for many years, one of the ways that we invited students and others to build community online was just to share a view from their window. So, again, open educators have recognized for some time that, people might not want to share their faces or even their surroundings, but even sharing a view from your window is a way of sharing your context and where you are and who you are. So the presentation is just kind of a selection box of a few ideas, kind of OEP from my window, and then some inspiring examples of OEP, particularly from 2020, that have kind of inspired my practice in terms of open education. The next slide is, again, I'm not looking at my presentation, I'm going by memory, is the UNESCO statement of joint action on open education, encouraging people to share OER. This, I think for many of us, has been kind of a touchstone this year. This was published in April, addressing the crisis just as it started after the pandemic, initiated institutional closures. And it initiates a discussion, I think, in speaking with people who are new to open education about the value and the urgency of open at this time, that it can afford so many things for people. So you can go through the next few slides. I kind of summarize the potential advantages of OER and OEP. These are slides that I use in many presentations throughout the year. Summarize benefits in terms of access, in terms of equity, and in terms of pedagogy. And beyond those three dimensions, I think we can talk really about systemic change, and many of us who are engaged in open education are really, this is the work that we are engaged in. So beyond helping individual learners and teachers and others get on board with open education, use OER, create their own OER, engage in open pedagogy, we're really now doing kind of the next stage of work, which is trying to sustain openness within institutions where culture isn't necessarily amenable to that. So, and this is a lot of the work that UNESCO has been doing. So you may recognize some of the language here. So what I've done in the slides, the next few slides, is I have a bar on the left with the terms access, equity, pedagogy, or OEP rather, and structural or systemic change. And I've just gone through and highlighted some examples there. So I don't actually need to speak through those. I mean, perhaps Lorna, Javiera, or Leo, it might be easier for you if you wanted to add something to these slides, because I can't see them as we're going through them. But I just have to say that two things. One is I created a document, which I'll send to Javiera via Twitter, where I have links to every single one of these examples that I've included. And I've included space for people to add their own, because the whole rationale of open is that we share our good practice with each other. And the examples that I've chosen don't mean to cover all of what's been done in open education this year, but rather, some of the key examples that have really inspired me. And even when I'm, doing something like, helping someone choose a license for, a particular, we are paying attention to things like equity, paying attention to things like different context, agency. These are all the things that help us, to be better at being open, so that we're being inclusive as we do it. And, the OLS conference so far has had so many fascinating discussions about surveillance, about data, about agency, about assessment, about proctoring. And, through many of those discussions, I think that the open education community has a lot to offer, because people who have been working in the open for some time have been, thinking about and writing about and wrestling with these issues for some time. So I invite people who maybe are newer to open education to dive in to the open education community and body of work, perhaps for some, interesting examples of some of the issues that are facing us, in 2020 and will be beyond. So can I leave it there? I mean, I apologize if this audio is so difficult. I'll try and send you the URL for the document.
But yeah, I think they can hear you. Well, they can hear you well, that's for sure. But if you want to hear them, I put my laptop as loud as I could.
Okay, thank you. That would be great. I'd love to have a discussion.
And Leo said that we posted the URL, so don't worry.
Okay, fantastic.
If anyone wants to say something, Catherine can hear you through here.
Yeah, no, I was going to say thanks, Catherine. It might be really difficult to present through a phone call and someone is moving your slide, but I think she did really well. And all the, as you say, Javier, all the links to the resources and also useful resources sent by participants, they are in the chat. You can have a look. Melissa has also sent the Open Education Resources COVID MOOC. So I think we have plenty of good resources through the chat.
Can you hear, Catherine?
It's very difficult for me to hear, Javier. I'm going to try and rejoin again. The audio just doesn't allow me to hear.
Okay, so I shall try to rejoin by. So yeah, we'll collect questions by the meantime for you. Okay.
Thank you. I'm trying to rejoin. Thanks, Javiera.
Thanks, Catherine. So yeah, she'll try to rejoin the session, but yeah, we can keep collecting things for Catherine, because she was basically dialing from Ireland to my phone in Italy, and I was streaming to you in the UK. So this is going to be proper use of technology.
Yeah. Funny enough, it was the old analogic technology. Javier, it was an analogic phone call, no? She was joining. It wasn't a fancy learning TCP/IP platform. So anyway, I think we finished 10 minutes earlier, guys, before the session was meant to finish by 4:20. So please, anyone to comment or share any other resources or link, or make any final comments regarding Catherine's presentation or Leo's and Javiera's presentation, feel free to do so.
So I think Lorna was trying to say something, so maybe we give her the floor.
Hi, Javier. I actually put my comment in the chat there. It was relating to the question about how to get students involved in policy creation. And it was really just to say that reaching out to, if you're an institution, reaching out to student union is one way to do that. And certainly in Edinburgh, when policies are being developed, then student representatives are always involved through the union.
Lorna, I think, hi, it's Leo again. I think that you were also saying something about recognition for open
Oh,
practice?
yeah, I think CMALT is one way to do that, because I think, policy development is frequently a long drawn out process, and I think any policy that has been developed well should have a lot of stakeholders contributing to it, and it can be quite difficult, I think, for everyone involved to get credit for their contributions to policy development. And I think one way to actually maybe do that is through CMALT. And CMALT certainly has got the capacity to include contributing to policy as one of its key elements. So I would certainly encourage anyone who is submitting a CMALT portfolio to think about including any instances where they have contributed to the formation of policy, on whatever level, to include that in their portfolio.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point, actually. And I think that as you go into the senior CMALT, you need to have kind of more policy elements in your portfolio, if I remember correctly. So it could take on even more of a significance if you're going for that upper level.
Yeah. I want to respond to Melissa's question. I think it'd be interesting to know how many universities' responses to a shift to online made significant use of OER from other places. You know what, Melissa? I've been trying to dig out digital strategies or emergency open education or distance learning or online learning strategies from several universities to see whether they have documented or allowed or facilitated or stated that people could use or produce OER, and it's actually been quite hard to trace any information. So guys, if anyone finds any sort of strategic or policy or mandate or anything in like the policy landscape document, please send it over to us, because I think they have kind of focused in the use of tools and the use of platforms, but there is no much kind of evidence about stating or promoting using of open educational resources or policies or practices.
Yeah, I think it's tricky to find evidence for this. I think it's going to be one of those things that's going to emerge over time, that people will say, oh, well, actually, we started doing this during the pandemic, but isn't necessarily maybe being encoded into policies at the moment. But I think there are kind of so many new digital practices certainly that are new to many people, and I think also, I suspect also new open practices that people are adopting, that we'll hopefully have more evidence of soon.
Yeah, I think we have Melissa and Lorna.
Yeah, I think it would be useful to know, because, or to even get a sense of, because, if every university taught online this semester, that means that the recorded lectures and the online classes for Biology 101 was produced separately and differently over and over again, 200, 300, 500 times, as each individual lecturer moved online and created those materials. So in theory, we now have a huge collection or even glut of digital teaching materials sitting in our universities, either hosted on our virtual learning environments or on our media platforms or whatever. So I don't think we've ever before had so much material. So if we did all invent every single thing from scratch and just use our own teaching material over and over, that would be interesting. As to what we do with that now, whether anybody shares theirs or whether we all just keep it safely to ourselves, and whether anybody went searching for material from other places to work into their online courses in a panic for not being able to find enough material to deliver in an online mode. They presumably did start searching for things they could use in their courses. So we may have seen a shift in practice caused by every course leader in the country, in the world, having to teach online.
Absolutely, and I'm really hoping that we're going to uncover evidence of this, or particularly that I'm going to uncover some more evidence of this as I move on with my my PhD.
No pressure, Leo. There's no pressure. Lorna.
So Martin in the chat asked if I could say something about the slide that's online at the moment. So this is actually a slide created by, or the information on it came from our Wikimedian in residence, Ewan McAndrew, and it's really highlighting the benefits of engaging with Wikipedia in the curriculum assignments, of which we have a considerable number in Edinburgh now. I think there's about 13 courses now have Wikipedia assignments as part of the curriculum. And some of these assignments have been running for about 4 years now. And we found that the students have responded extremely positively to them. And these are just some of the skills that students are able to develop through creating Wikipedia articles as forms of assignments. So these really crucial digital and information literacy skills that we all need now in writing content for public outreach is a really good way to develop these skills. It's also a good way to develop collaborative working, information synthesis skills, copyright literacy, which of course is key, critical thinking, source evaluation, data sciences. These are all benefits from engaging with the creation of Wikipedia articles. But we also have lots of other types of open content creation assignments and assessments running throughout the university. There are a number of MSc courses, for example, that require students to create open education resources for other educators. We have undergraduate programs such as our Geosciences Outreach course, where we have undergraduates creating educational content with a legacy, which our student interns then take, transform into open education resources and share for school teachers on TES resources. So all these different forms of open education assignments are ways that students can actually start to build up these really important critical skills. And I'll drop some links in the chat in a moment, because our Wikipedia in residence has new web pages on the university's website, which provide a real wealth of information about how you can engage with Wikipedia and guidelines on how to get involved. And we also have a book of case studies of Wikimedia in education. So I'll drop these into the chat now.
I think, thanks, Lorna. I think it's 4:20. Lorna, you mentioned you're going to send some links, yeah, through the chat following this. And I think it's time to finish now for having a short break. And remember, the Learning Technology of the Year Awards ceremony and the Community Awards takes place at 4:30. Is the AL conference. So thank you very much to all the speakers, and thank you to